Joining me now for some analysis on where we are post-US election. Joining me is our political contributor, Chris Uhlmann. Chris, where do we start? So much to talk about, isn't there, with Donald Trump?
Where do you look?
Where do we look? Let's start with Kevin Rudd, because this tweet by Dan Scavino, as very senior advisor to Donald Trump, with the hourglass, time running out, could not have been clearer.
And things keep coming out, the village idiot comment, and that's with him on camera, what he said in the past on Twitter. I found it hilarious when he was trying to delete past tweets. That reminded me of smoking in the schools in the olden days when you used to try and flush the butts down the toilet. Teacher would come in, small cloud over your head. Were you smoking? No, we weren't. It's really, all he did was turn that whole thing into a news story, right? Now, the government has a choice to make. I think Kevin Rudd's a good ambassador, by the way. I think Australia should stand on its digs at the moment and say, no, that's the man that we have sent to Washington and we have faith in him. There are people in Trump's administration who've called him some pretty bad things too, including the Vice President. Now, he's been quite forgiving there, and maybe there's an enormous amount of sucking up that has to be done. Reminds you a bit of Pretty Woman when they went back in to buy those dresses. How much sucking up do you need to do? I think there's a fair bit. But if he becomes a problem, in the end, realpolitik is that you change him.
Yeah, well, exactly. That's the question. Does it start to impact Australia's national interest, whether it be AUKUS or tariffs? If it were, if he's unable to push back against, say, the critics of free trade, and we get whacked with tariffs over one person's job, surely the government then... Isn't it better to preempt that, say, put Scott Morrison in there?
Yeah,
I know it sounds crazy, but why not?
Yeah, look,
he's got access to Trump.
Yeah, I think the idea at the moment would be, look, just stand still for the moment and watch events unfold. And if it turns out that he is an impediment to conversations, then that's when the Prime Minister might need to act. But I think that rushing to make a decision at the moment makes it look like you're panicked. And I don't think that dealing with Donald Trump to show any sign of weakness at the outset, I think it's probably a bad idea. And I'm sure that Malcolm Turnbull would say that in that first conversation he had with Trump, where he was trying to get him to take those people that that we had agreed to, that he stood his ground and in the end won.
Indeed. Now, the Prime Minister's heading off to South America, to the APEC summit and then the G20 in Brazil. Should he head to North America off the back of it, head to Florida and try and get some face time? Because the thing is about Donald Trump, as you know, and we covered his first term in office, he's so unpredictable. It's not a conventional president. You need to make that personal connection as ASAP, don't you?
Yeah, I think stroking his ego is a big thing. And don't forget, we saw that last time. I think the last time it was Shinzo Abe who immediately flew across to speak to Donald Trump the last time that he was elected, to be the first leader in there, to get into his ear. And those relationships are going to be hugely important. The alliances are going to have to, outside the United States, are going to have to work together with Donald Trump. And unfortunately, a big part of his ego is flattery, right? So, if you flatter him by making a big decision to make the call, to make the effort to go there, and then you could have a conversation about your ambassador, it wouldn't be wasted time. If he said he'd speak to you, speak to him.
Yeah, and the thing is, I guess you can have flattery alongside forceful contributions as well. It's not like you show some respect, show up, but you can still make your position very forcefully. It's not saying you're going to just capitulate.
Yeah, look, Australia's got a good case to make, right? Because the thing is, he's transactional, and in fact, we're one of the places where the US does better out of the relationship than Australia does in some ways in terms of the balance of trade. So that's in our favour, and also too, we're the only country that's putting money into their industrial base to try and build Virginia-class submarines. Like, we are actually putting money into their program. Now, what becomes of that, who knows? But we can point to those things.
Another reminder today, Richard Marles, the acting Prime Minister, announcing this new mobilisation deal with BAE Systems and the ASC, the Submarine Corporation, new skills pathway. It's just another reminder of how much this is embedded now into our defence and foreign policy. So there's a lot at stake for the Albanese government to get this relationship right.
A huge amount, because if you look at what we're doing in terms of our own defence, what we're essentially doing in the short term is inviting the United States to forward base itself here. That's how we're defending ourselves. So we're going to see a step up in the number of people from the United States. The number of Marines will be in Darwin. We're going to see rotations coming through our ports of their submarines. So I think that's a hugely important relationship. And here's an outsider for you. Richard Marles can play golf. Richard Marles would be accepted by both sides as ambassador to the United States.
Ambassador, wow, that's a big call. I think you still got higher honours.
I would say to him that his ambitions to be Prime Minister are probably, like, while they're still going on in his head, I don't think he'll ever have the numbers. So
we'll see.
Kind of job might be better for him.
We'll see. You never know. Geez, I think he does have higher ambitions, though, and maybe the Prime Minister should take him along. Who knows? Because he could definitely hold his own with him on the golf course. On Trump on energy, drill, baby, drill, how does that play out for Australia? I know you've got your documentary coming up on Sky News next week as well, just a few days away.
Yeah, and so one of the things that would do, what the United States, by the way, look, let's not forget, the United States became an oil and gas superpower. It now exports more than Saudi Arabia through fracking in the United States. That's what its energy base is. That's why why companies are flocking back to Texas, because there is energy there that they can use, which is cheap, and it's fossil fuel energy. Now, drill, baby, drill, what that means is they'll take him up on that, by the way, all those oil and gas companies, but that will drop the price. So in some ways, the Democrats are better for those companies, because what happens is what they lose in volumes, they make up in price. With Trump, if you flood the world with cheap fossil fuel, the world will burn every single molecule, but the price will go down. And that may well help a country like Australia, which is now going to be putting up gas import terminals. Can you believe it? We've made a decision that we're going to build a renewable energy gathering exercise in trying to get energy from the environment and turn that into a reliable electricity system. Well, it does not function as a reliable electricity system without being built on a backbone of gas. So we're not talking about a little bit of gas. We're talking about 15 gigawatts. Enough.
Well, we've got a lot of gas. Why don't we just have a domestic reservation like they do in WA?
Because we put bans on it in Victoria, Kieran, because we banned the exploration of it in Victoria for a decade. Now, of course, reality's beginning to bite. Those people who wanted this renewable heavy grid are now actually coming to the understanding, which they never understood, was that it can't work without a dispatchable fuel source. At the moment, it's coal. If we're going to replace that, it will have to be something like gas. And we're going to have to build 13 gigawatts of that gas, and we're going to need the gas. So, yes, a sensible government now would push as hard as it possibly could, put gas into the capacity investment mechanism so that you get some sort of, encourage players into the game and mow down all of the barriers, because the only way you're going to get the wholesale price of electricity down is to lower the price of gas. Renewable energy will not cut the wholesale price of electricity, because it will never set the price at hours of peak demand.
Okay, so and the documentary coming up, you must be pleased to have it done.
Well, I think we handed in the final version of it yesterday, going to air at 8 p.m. on Tuesday night on Sky. Extremely grateful to the people at Sky for the fact, the opportunity to be able to do this. I do believe this is an important story. I think I've said to you forever, energy is everything. Without energy, there is no economy. And I think at the moment we're rolling the dice, and what we're going to build will be an extremely expensive and highly unreliable system, and it will not function as planned.
I look forward to tuning in.
Thanks, mate.
Tuesday evening. Chris Uhlmann, thanks as always. And as Chris said there, 19th of November, 8 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, Chris Uhlmann's exclusive documentary, The Real Cost of Net Zero.